This week on NHRA Today, John Force makes a clean sweep, but not behind the Clydesdales. Pat Austin scores his season's Winston win #1. Indy makes 8 for the older, wiser Johnson. And Schultz gets waxed, but not in points. From Sports Service Incorporated in Indianapolis, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. When you go to an NHRA event, you can tell who people root for by the shirts they wear. There's no subtlety here. The driver fans want to win the race. It's as plain as the shirt in your face. T-shirts play up personalities, rev up rivalries, and make your sympathies loud and proud. Whether in the pits or in the stands, these kinds of shirts show you care by what you chose to wear. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans, and I'm right over here. This place is huge, isn't it? It's the headquarters of the Sports Service Company, celebrating their 30th anniversary as the exclusive supplier of souvenirs to NHRA. In the next half hour, we're going to show you how they create the T-shirts we all love so much. It's a very interesting and intricate process. And, of course, we'll have results of the U.S. Nationals held this past weekend at IRP. But first, April, come here. Show them. We're going to find out what's hot. There was a hotbed of activity at IRP last weekend. Division III held its alcohol showdown races, with Chuck Baird taking the dragster title, while Chuck Cheeseman in the near lane chased down Danny Townsend to take the honors in the funny car final. Both of the professional all-star races were close-fought affairs. In the $50,000 Big Butt Shootout, John Force in the near lane nipped Cruz Pedregon by 0.03 of a second.
Well, I tell you, it's a good thing old COIL and Bernie and his team gave me some horsepower, because they told me the kid welded me. That don't happen to this old man much, but we trucked down there. We won the 50 grand. That's all that matters.
The $10,000 Wax Shop Dash final was almost as close, as John Myers in the far lane chased down Dave Schultz and then hung on to win by 0.04 of a second.
I didn't hear him until like fourth gear, and I said, oh my God, here he comes.
Sponsors were also making news at Indy. Slick 50 handed out rings to the 6 newest members of the 300-mile-per-hour club, and Ricky Smith debuted his Formula Firebird in the team's colors. Mark Osborne's Pyrol Olds made its competition debut, and Detroit Gasket stepped up its involvement with Eddie Hill's Nuclear Banana Top Fueler. Missing at Indy, the Hawaiian Vacation Funny Car, which is parked due to problems in the 50th state.
Until the funding is unstuck in Hawaii, the car is parked, and people are already calling the governor and faxing, trying to find out why. And we're hopefully we'll be sorted out in the next 5-10 days.
And that's what's hot. Here at Sports Service, the first step in creating a souvenir T-shirt is the artwork. In this case, for the Pioneer Keystone Nationals next weekend in Maple Grove, Pennsylvania. And that is the responsibility of Nate Holmes, the in-house artist. Now, Nate starts with a very simple little pencil drawing, letting his creative juices flow. If everybody seems to like that, well, he further defines it into what they call the key line. Then he gets into his paint box and creates the color composition, and here you see the completed color comp. And this will become the separations used in the silkscreen process we'll show you in just a bit. Right now, let's go to a guy who has the largest T-shirt collection of anybody I know, Dave McClellan, with the Top Fuel report from Indy.
2 years ago, the U.S. Nationals weekend was the birthplace of Pat Austin's Top Fuel career. But in 1993, Pat expected this date to welcome the birth of his first child.
My wife and my new baby's on my mind all the time, and I can't wait for that special day.
Pat qualified his Castrol Syntec Dragster 14th, which meant a first-round matchup with defending champion Ed the Ace McCulloch in the McDonald's Dragster. The car stayed even to the 1,000-foot mark, where Austin surged ahead, finding the fours for the first time all weekend. In the second round, Pat knocked off another veteran, Don Prudhomme, which set up a Final Four matchup with Scott Coletta, who had run a 4:88, the quick time of eliminations in his win against Jim Head. Coletta's American International Airways entry was a tick late at the line, and despite a quicker elapsed time, Scott couldn't keep Pat out of the finals for the second time in 3 years. As soon-to-be grandpa Walt Austin looked on, Pat prepared to do battle with the always-on-the-edge dragster of Doug Herbert. And at the green, both drivers lit up the rear tires. But Austin was back in the throttle first, and that proved enough to earn him his first national event win of the year.
It just shows from experience, you know, that as the years go on, you learn and learn and learn. Well, we learned how to do a burnout, obviously.
Pat's win still does not put him in the top 10 in the Winston point standings, where Eddie Hill maintains a substantial lead over Kenny Bernstein. Scott Collette is third, then Doug Herbert and Mike Dunn rounds out the top 5.
And a second congratulations to Pat Austin, as his wife Keela gave birth to 8.5-pound Andrew Walter Austin early Friday morning.
The finished artwork goes to the camera room, where it is blown up to actual size, and film positives are made, one for each color. In the case of the Keystone shirt, there's 8 of them. Now it's time to make the actual screen. They don't use silk anymore. This is polyurethane, and the tension to which it's stretched on the frame is critical to successful screening. And they check it with this thing called a Newton meter. Next step, follow me, voila, into the coating room, which is equipped with special filtered light. And here an emulsion is applied. Think of that as liquid film. It has to cure for about 20 minutes before it goes to the next step, which is burning in the actual image. Well, this past weekend, burnouts were thrilling the crowd in the funny car category. Here's Dave.
The U.S. Nationals is the most important drag race of the year, and some drivers will go to any length to make the Elite 16 car field. Take, for example, Canadian funny car pilot Bob Elliott, who took a second mortgage on his house just to get to Indy.
20 years ago, I would have taken more. I would have taken a big mortgage, but we're just doing what we got to do, and there's lots of guys doing the same thing. People come over and say, boy, you just qualified for the U.S. Nationals. So then you feel pretty proud about it.
In round 1, Elliott's Northern Force Daytona met up with Freddie Neely's Forever Young Ford. At the start, Neely took a slight advantage in the near lane and powered his way to victory, making a short but sweet U.S. Nationals weekend for Bob Elliott.
As long as we weren't embarrassed, I'm happy and the crew's happy.
Freddie Neely was beaten in round number 2 by Jim Epler, which set up a Final Four confrontation between the Rug Doctor Oldsmobile and the Dodge Daytona of Kenji Okazaki.
The cars left the line together, but when Epler veered toward the wall in the far lane, that was enough to send the pride of Japan on to his first final round ever, against the #1 qualifier, John Force. As Force eyed his first U.S. Nationals title, Kenji's Moon Eyes machine developed a fuel line leak before staging. A disappointed Okazaki could only watch as the Castrol Cutlass soloed its way to the U.S. Nationals crowd.
Here we are, hub of Indianapolis, the hub of drag racing, and we did it, and that's all that matters.
John's win just about put the cap on the bottle on the Winston Points Championship. He's got a huge lead over Cruz Pedregon, with Chuck Etchells, Al Hoffman, and Tom Hoover rounding out the top 5. John Force couldn't possibly exist in a vacuum, but a vacuum is critical in the making of a silkscreen. Now, you saw the emulsion applied and cured. Now it goes into this unit with the film positive on top. It sucks all the air out of there, creating indeed a perfect vacuum. And that is done so that when the image is burned in, there's no atmosphere in there for it to reflect off of and possibly blur. Now, what is dark on the screen, well, that'll just wash out with water. What is clear, that will solidify into the emulsion. And all 8 screens will go through this process. Among the events at the U.S. Nationals was the Carcraft Magazine Banquet, at which this year's all-star drag racing team was announced. Among those honored with Christmas tree trophies were top fuel driver Eddie Hill and his crew chief Fuzzy Carter, funny car driver John Force and his crew chiefs Austin COIL and Bernie FEDDERLY, Pro Stock driver Warren Johnson, his crew chief Greg Anderson, and Pro Stock biker John Myers. Old WJ was also named Person of the Year, and Englishtown's Vince Knapp got the Ollie Award. The next evening, the Drag Racing Association of Women, DRAW, raised more than $27,000 for charity during their annual auction of motorsports memorabilia. Our own Bob Fry and Dave McClellan got so worked up in leading the bidding that they sold the shirts off their backs for more than $200 a piece. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, it was not a pretty sight. Welcome back to T-Shirt Central here in Central Indiana. Once the images are burned into the screens, well, they're ready to go to work. And they come to this 10-station automatic screening machine. Now, it's absolutely critical that each screen be in perfect register to every other screen. This happens to be the John Force t-shirt you saw earlier. It's a full boat run. It uses all 10 colors. So the t-shirt will stop at every station before it's a finished garment with a truly professional look. Speaking of professionals, here's Dave McClellan with the Pro Stocks Report.
For some drivers, simply qualifying for the U.S. Nationals is a goal. But for others, like Jim Yates, success at Indy can set the tone for the rest of the season. Jim gives credit for his 7th qualifying spot to new engine consultant Richard Maskin.
Oh, we're just ecstatic. I mean, since we've added Richard to the team, we've been able to put some pretty good runs together here and get some consistency out of the car finally.
Yates met up with Vince Curry's Cutlass in round 1. And at the green, Curry took a slight advantage in the far lane. But as the cars worked through the gears, Yates powered his Dynamax Pontiac past for the win. That set up a second round meeting with the Mopar Parts Daytona of number 2 qualifier Scott Jeffreyon. Yates' whole shot advantage in the far lane lasted to half track until Jeffreyon's top end horsepower propelled him past to claim the victory.
Oh, we tried as hard as we could. I tell you, we were happy to come back here and run as good as we did right now.
Scott Jeffreyon advanced into the final by defeating the surprising Lewis Warden, while on the other side of the ladder, Warren defeated Kurt in yet another battle of the Johnson family. As the cars left the line, Jeffreyon's slightly quicker reaction time gave him the lead. But the GM Performance Parts Cutlass ran him down at the top end to win by the slightest of margins, 1/1000th of a second.
There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel as far as the championship is concerned, but winning this thing a second time around is unbelievable as far as our team is concerned.
Warren maintains a huge lead over Scott Jeffreyon in the Winston standings. Third is son Kurt, Larry Morgan 4th, and Bob Glidden number 5. In Pro Stock Motorcycle, Winston points leader John Myers was eliminated in the first round, giving Dave Schultz a shot at the points lead. To do that, Dave had to face the Anoka Ramsey Suzuki of John Smith in the final. Smith took a sizable lead off the line, but Schultz's Sunoco Suzuki caught him and won going away for his 5th career U.S. Nationals win.
I've got a smile that won't leave for several days.
Dave's win gives him the points lead over John Myers, with John Rod and Michael rounding out the top 5.
What do you say? Let's make some t-shirts for those souvenir crazed fans that'll pour into Maple Grove next weekend. All right, the shirt gets loaded here. It's not a white shirt, so first a white background is applied. Then the white is dried in this little oven, and it's time to put some color down. A really vibrant yellow, and it's a 2-stroke process. First, the flood stroke, and that spreads the plastic-based ink on top of the screen, and then the print stroke, which squeegees it through the screen and onto the garment. We got aqua, we got light blue, we've got red, a dazzling purple, we've got a dark blue, we've got black, and we've got us a t-shirt. Once it goes on this conveyor belt, and it's cured. Who knows, the shirt you're wearing might have gone right through that oven. Who's hot in the world of drag racing? This set of dragster trading cards was the object of a bidding war at IRP's draw auction, as Don Rushlow tried to buy them for his wheelchair-bound son, Mike. Jerry Gwynn has known the 16-year-old drag racing fan since before his son Daryl's accident put him in a wheelchair. So he joined in the bidding.
Well, I saw his dad bidding on it, and then I saw some other fella trying to buy it out from under him, and I just said, you know, his dad probably could, that was all he could afford to do, and I just said I wanted to do that for him.
Jerry Gwynn handed the cards over to young Mike, leaving Mike's father speechless.
We go back a long ways.
I want you to meet Pete McDermott. He is the CEO here at Sports Service. And Pete, as we look at these two screens, what a difference a few years makes.
You're absolutely right, Steve. The technology has become advanced very rapidly, and the fans are well aware of it. If you take a look at the 1987 design, how stark it is, the cars are small, and we've advanced to the design that's going to be run at the Keystone Nationals next weekend, you can just see how much better it looks and how the car is running right off the shirt.
And you know, in drag racing photographers, well, they live for wheel stands, and they burned up some film on this Superstock moonshot last weekend at IRP. In this week's Fast Fact, Frank Hawley tells us why and how wheel stands happen.
Have you ever watched an NHRA Superstock car leave the start line with a front end high in the air and then watched a Pro Stock car leave with a front end on the ground? And have you ever wondered what the difference is? Well, it actually and indirectly has to do with the NHRA rules. The Superstock cars are much more limited in the rule category. They have to have their engines further forward than the Pro Stock cars, which means the weight's further forward. They also have to have a stock floor in the car, which means that the ride height of the car must be taller so that they have the drive shaft below the floor. The Pro Stock cars don't have to contend with that. Well, way back in the early 60s, the FX cars used to have to do wheel stands in order to get traction. What they're doing is they wheel stand the car, they transfer the weight to the rear tires, the tires don't spin as much, and they get better traction. Well, what happens with the Superstock cars today is exactly the same thing. Now, it takes a little bit more horsepower and a little bit more time, and you probably have a little bit more air drag by doing a wheel stand, but you have a net return on the ET slip because of the increased traction, especially in the automatic transmission cars. So that means that if you watch a Superstock car leave the starting line with the front end stuck to the ground, the driver's not going to be very happy when he picks up his ET slip.
Sports Service makes T-shirts in all different sizes, even for infants. But it dawned on me, I have never seen Bob Fry in a T-shirt. I guess they just don't make them in extra thin. Anyway, here is Bob with a Sportsman Report. You like that, huh?
I figured since we're at Indianapolis Raceway Park for the 39th running of the U.S. Nationals, we got the biggest crowd and the most knowledgeable fans. This would be a great time for a Bob Fry drag racing trivia quiz. Now, if you'd like to play along with us at home, feel free. Here's a sample question. This building used to be A, the World Trade Center, B, the Empire State Building, C, the Timing Tower at Raceway Park, or D, none of the above. See, it's easy. And if you don't know the right answer, just guess, because we got some nice prizes for the winners. And guess C. There's only one driver that has participated in all 38 previous U.S. Nationals. Who was it? A, Connie Kalita, B, Don Garlitz, C, Al Brown, or D, Dave Boardman. What do you think? C. No, I'm sorry. The answer is C, Al Brown. Jeez, I thought this guy would know. Here's the second one. Since 1981, when we started running Top Alcohol Dragster here at Indy, how many repeat winners have there been in that class up until this year? The choices: A, 3, B, 2, C, none, and D, 1. What do you think? C! No, I'm sorry, the answer is C, none. But thanks for playing, and we have some nice parting gifts for you. I'm telling you, guess C. All right, so it's not a Superstocker, but this next question pertains to Superstock racing. Who was the first Superstock winner here at Indy? The choices: A, Arlen Banky, B, Ronnie Sox, C, Bill Jenkins, or D, Charlie Taylor. What do you think? No, I'm sorry. I keep telling them to pick C. You'd think they'd know by now. But anyway, maybe you'll do a little bit better with some of the questions pertaining to racing on the track. Now, for those of you that haven't done real well in the quiz so far, this one will be easy. Two choices. Who won the U.S. Nationals in Supergas? Was it A, Jeff Saledji, or B, Mitch Graham? If you guessed A, Jeff Saledji, you're correct. Jeff, tell us about that final.
Going through the traps, I going down the shutdown area, I was waving my arms. It's an unforgettable and unbelievable experience.
In the comp eliminator final, Todd Patterson in the far lane took his first ever U.S. Nationals championship, beating out Tom Martino in a really close race in a battle of full-bodied cars. Todd, what was the key to victory here today?
A would be get my foot off the clutch pedal at the right time. B, get a green light. C, get the fifth gear and still be ahead. And D, all the above.
Now here are the rest of the winners from the U.S. Nationals. Well, we have a winner. Let's award the prize. You were our winner. You don't want it? No? 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 No, he doesn't want it. There we go. We finally found somebody that would take that shirt. Yeah. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob. These folks are no dummies.
For all of us here at NHRA Today, thanks for watching on TNN.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.